The question I get asked the most is, how do I raise capital? Well, in this week's episode, Michael Hummel and I are going to share with you some of the cheat codes to get investors to flock to you with more money in less time. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller, and today I have my dear friend, Michael Hummel. Michael is the founder and CEO at Established PR. It's a PR firm that specializes in helping startups and emerging fund managers to scale up their fundraising efforts by leveraging reputation and relationships through the power of PR. So what this means is that Michael is the guy you call before you raise capital for your next fund or your startup so that you will be wildly successful with your investors. So Michael, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Ryan. So glad to be here, man. Big fan. Really cool just what you have going on here with the Making Billions community. To be honest, when I came across the podcast, just the title got me excited. I was like, this man's thinking big. I got to meet him. So really excited to be here today and hopefully, add a lot of value to, the community that you've been able to build.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've been very fortunate with the success. We're already in the top 2% in the world. And obviously when I launched it, a lot of my friends were big fans, but they're also not surprised. They're like, well, if Ryan started a podcast, I'm not surprised that that's the name. But playing big, thinking big, that's the name of the game. And that's how we make it. And we do it together through reputation relationships. So with that, I've looked you up and I've seen many things that you're working on, but I'm just curious, how did you get started in this industry? And, why, how does that apply to entrepreneurs and emerging fund managers?
Yeah, it's been a journey to be quite honest. I actually started out in the exact opposite type of a world with my entrepreneurial journey. And it all started for me when I launched a Facebook ad agency. Yeah, it was like right when that was big hype. I'm sure that you saw some of the gurus out there pushing that SMMA. I'm like, you're telling me, I'm a young kid, early 20s. And I'm like, you're telling me I can charge someone a couple $1,000s a month and just do that from home? Crazy. So I went all in on trying to do that. And it went quite well, to say the least. I grew that company really rapidly, went from about $0 to $100,000 a month in just under a year. That was pretty crazy for me, being early 20s, kind of going from very, very low income, job income, to now having pretty much a functioning business. So that was really exciting. But I realized that my passion wasn't necessarily in media buying. So when I thought about long-term growth and development with the company, it kind of was unclear to what I would be able to do. It was kind of like, am I going to be the greatest ad buyer, media buyer in the world? Is that really where I'm going to excel? And quite frankly, the answer was no. At that time, my skill sets was also just not building a team. So I decided to pivot and go into something that I feel like is a skill of mine and allowed me to grow so fast, which was outbound, acquisition of clients, actually growing a company. That's really where I figured out a pretty unique system. So I transitioned from running an agency to helping early stage agencies basically scale faster. I was like, look, I grew from $0 to 100 grand a month. Let me show you how to add $10,000 a month MRR like that. That was like the bread and butter. I helped over 1,000 early stage ad agencies within a 2-year period to do just that. It went pretty well and it was a lot of fun. And then one thing kind of led to another. And I actually had like COVID hit, and it was kind of a time in my life where I'm like, what's next? Am I just going to teach agencies this system for forever? What am I actually going to do? Again, just going back to how I got into this, that business was going pretty well. And one day I actually got featured in Yahoo Finance, and it was a friend of mine that was in PR that he did that for me as a favor. And I was like, oh, cool. Nice. Very great. Yep. Go ahead. Get me an article. It sounds perfect. And when it happened, when the article came out, it was like this feeling of excitement for myself. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I was just like, oh, I'm a real business owner, because I was still young, I was still early in the game, and boom, someone else is talking about me. So it felt good, but that was about all the thought that I put into it. So I posted on my Instagram. I had to take a pretty long flight. It was about an 8-hour flight. So I just post, share it. Hopefully some people think I'm cool now. Great. And hopped on a plane. When I landed is when I realized that this was something that had been overlooked. I had over 100 DMs. I don't have that big of a following on social media. My family, my friends, old clients, people reached out from all over the place to essentially congratulate me, ask how they could get involved. And it was nothing that I'd ever experienced before. It was kind of when I went from just direct response, spend $1, make 2, 3, 4, to this thing called brand and status. And I'd never experienced it. And that was the first time. To take things further, and when I realized it was actually a big thing, was in the business, I actually started making more money. So our sales team actually started bringing up the fact that in their sales calls, people would explicitly say when they bought that the reason they went with us versus someone else is before they bought, they Googled our name, they found the article. And that was enough to choose us versus a competitor. So went pretty hard into that. And yeah, it's been going pretty well since then. And yeah, that's kind of the come up per se for PR.
That's such a phenomenal story. That's a big story with a lot of investors or fund managers or entrepreneurs, whatever it is you started and you dabbled and you figured out what you liked, and it's this refinement process, and then boom, eventually it hits and you're like, I found my thing. I'm so happy that happened. And I know there's a lot of people listening to the show that are still looking for that right now. And they came to the right place. Now, that's how you started, and that's how you became an expert. Now, I know you're backed by some good funds, but with that, you've achieved that. You've raised capital from professional investors. You've built your firm. Tell me about Establish. Tell me about your firm. How does it work with founders and emerging fund managers? Maybe walk us through a little bit of that on how you help people raise capital through PR.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and I'll take a step back because, you touched on something really important. And as one of our core principles, we've gone through the raising capital process ourselves. We actually kind of hit this point as a firm where we weren't sure how to scale to the next level. And we were like, what are we going to do? The masterminds weren't doing it for us. We couldn't just find a mentor or find a company doing the same thing. We really needed some cash infusion, some strategic help. And we found this private equity partner that was perfect. And we were able to start a conversation with them. And we went through their very intense due diligence process. It took us around 6, maybe 8 months to basically lock it in, close the deal. They have less than a 1% acceptance rate into their portfolio. That gave us this insight into what people go through when trying to raise money, whether it's for venture capital or for fund managers. It's not easy, right? Outside looking in, it doesn't seem nearly as difficult as it truly is, the steps that are involved. And, we obviously had quite a lot of success with that. So we've been using those principles from actually going through it for ourselves and getting so much success for our clients to basically continue to help with that process. And what we're doing now, we've worked with over 1,000 different companies, helping them get into over 10,000 publications at this point. Just this last week, we've set up nearly 100 conversations for our clients with investors to actually coordinate the conversations of investing into their startups. There's countless examples. We've probably raised nearly $100 million combined for all of the clients that have been working with us over the years. And that's a very conservative lowballed number. And I'm sure we're going to be heading out significantly more from here on out.
I love it. And do you have any success stories of some of the clients that you were able to help in raising capital with Establish?
Yeah, absolutely. One that's really prominent and just comes to mind is we had a client get featured on Yahoo Finance, just a simple publication. And he was just trying to raise a seed round. We didn't even reach out to investors. We didn't do any introductions, no warm intros or anything. And an investor stumbled onto his article, reached out, and they led the round for $1.5 million for his seed round, just from seeing an article. And that was kind of one of our earlier wins that showed us, wow, PR matters a lot. Ryan, at the end of the day, early stage funding, especially pre-Series A, what is it that an investor is buying into? It's a story. It's betting on the jockey, not on the horse, right? So it's all about how compelling, how clearly can you articulate what it is that you're building, and how can you get other people to talk about what you're doing and make it exciting, right? If you think about the big companies out there that exploded almost overnight, that got funding almost without trying, it's typically because there's this FOMO in the market to where the investor sees one thing and then it's a spark and things compound. And that's what we do, is we try and get that spark ignited through PR, through more conversations, and make the fundraising process a lot more smooth for the founder.
My friend Brett Martin, shout out to him over at Charge Ventures, but he says FOMO, he calls it FOMO fundraising. He's like, oh, it's catnip to investors and VC guys. So that FOMO is very, very powerful when they feel that fear of missing out. I think PR helps to engage that moment, like Michael has said. That is a phenomenal story. So, and you're absolutely right. In the early stage, take it from me, in the VC space, in the beginning, there's not a lot of a company to even dissect and invest in. And that's the part that Michael was talking about, was he saying it's more betting on the jockey and not so much on the horse, meaning more on the founders and less on the company is what makes you close the deal. Therefore, by investing in PR, that, in my opinion, and Michael, you didn't say this, but I certainly will, it's kind of like your pitch deck for you, for the jockey. The jockey's pitch deck is the PR, it is whatever Google search results show up. And so that's why when there's, say, podcasts or articles, or I've been in Forbes and I'm on the World Economic Forum, whatever. So you see all of these accolades for a lot of founders, that is quite convincing. In fact, I had an investment that I did a couple of years back, and he literally, he walked through his elevator pitch. And by the end, I was like, dude, shut up, take my money. It was amazing. So he was like, we developed this thing. We're in 5 different countries already. We're just getting started. Oh yeah, by the way, we're backed by the UN, the World Bank. My partner and I were in Forbes, top 30 under 30. And I was like, what is happening? So his technology sounded amazing, but it was still very early. But when I started to find out and I started to search these guys and their Forbes top 30 under 30 and their connections to the World Bank and all these wonderful things they're doing to alleviate poverty around the world and bring energy and all these things, It was awesome. That was what tipped me over the edge in a good way to make the investment. Was I saw all of these things that they personally were doing, and they validated that it was a lot of their pitch deck, seeing that they were in Forbes, they were on these councils, and there was data online to actually find the fact that they were on the council. You can do all these wonderful things that no one ever heard of. It's not particularly helpful when you're raising capital. So I think Michael's point is, do these great things. You're doing great things, whether you're emerging fund manager, venture capital, private equity, real estate, doesn't matter, or a founder. You're doing all these wonderful things, but it is so important if you're going to raise money that the market knows about it. And that's where people like Michael come in. So now that we've kind of established that PR is a really great, think of it like your pitch deck for you. And if you're early, that's what you need to focus on as well. I'm wondering if you, through your experience, you've done all these wonderful things. You've raised capital, both institutional capital, you've bootstrapped companies, you've done all of these things. I'm wondering if you can share for the rest of the show, maybe we can talk about 3 things or more that you find most helpful, and not just what people should focus on, but I'm very curious on how. Let's talk about how. Let's give them some cheat codes. How, for example, how do people do press releases?
Yeah, let's dive into it. And I mean, you said something really important there, where it's like, what's the first thing that an investor does after they have a conversation with you? You receive an intro.
They Google you. Yeah, boom. They Google the founder.
Just like that, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, probably the most simple thing that any founder, anyone listening to this could do is just talk about what they're doing with a press release. A press release being the most simple, cost-effective way and a guaranteed way for you to just put your name out there to tell your story in a way that will allow them to read it on their own time. A platform that I really like, I'll give you all the deeds for press releases. I'll give you everything. We got a few things. So let's first talk about the platform. The preferred platform is AccessWire. It's really cost-effective. It's about $300 to purchase a press release and to publish it and put it out online. Now, the reason AccessWire is really great is they have partnerships with Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg, Business Insider, NASDAQ, all these giant publications. And all of those publications have really good relationships with Google. What's that mean? Simply, if you put yourself in a press release and are strategic with the keywords you put into it, then you will rank when people search for you. Okay? So I'll get more into that now. So the most important piece about a press release is going to be the title. So the title is basically what search engines use in order to make you findable, right? So for instance, what would be in the title? Things that are very important. Your full name, first name, last name, and then your company name. Why? Again, after you talk to an investor, if you ever cold approach an investor, ever, the first thing they do is Google your name. And even if your name's Ryan Miller, and there's a million of you, right? They're going to then search Ryan Miller, company name. That's why it's really important to put first name, last name, and the company name in there, just so you're able to have something rank. And again, it's also more legitimate because it's on one of those big publications. So whenever you can get a Yahoo, whenever you can get a Business Insider, it just makes more sense. Even if people know it's a press release, it adds status because you're in that publication. So that's probably the most important piece two pieces, I'd say, of writing a press release. Does that make sense, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. So implementing the title is one of the most crucial parts that you found, but you also mentioned including just good keyword searches. So those are really important. And then AccessWire is a distribution platform. Is it accesswire.com?
Yes, that's exactly right. And they're only about $300. And one thing too important to remember about a press release is you need to have it formed as an announcement of some kind. But some people are like, oh, well, there's not that much going on with my company. It's like, yes, there is. You can have a new feature come out. You can add a new team member. That's a way for you to pitch basically their experience. That's one of the most important things when investors are looking at getting involved, is talking about the team that you have. So doing a press release for any new team member that's like C-level or going to be directly, building it with you. So there's always a way to think about how can we make this announcement the most important and actually tell our story through it, rather than just doing an announcement that, we just launched and just leaving it at that and then no one ever sees it, right?
Okay. So I would say dimensions to look for, you mentioned, are partnerships, but also product changes, new product, old product happening, customer testimonials. There's so many dimensions in any business that there's activity going on. And as I've been told before, a great place to start is start with your heart and work your way out. So what is it that really hits to the core of your business that demonstrates some passion or good feeling that people also can experience that passion and good feelings with either you or your company, your product, whatever that is? There's a lot that you can work on. And to take it from any founder or CEO, it's all heart, baby. This is your dream. This is your baby. You're building this thing out. And so you certainly, like me, a proud papa, You're going to brag about your kids. You're going to brag about your business because your heart and soul were put into making this thing into everything it can be. That is absolutely brilliant advice. So now, once you have that press release, you can go to AccessWire. I know we spoke offline a little bit, and you mentioned there's a bit of a strategy and some techniques out there about leveraging that press release. So we've released it, we wrote it, great, check that box. But there's a leveraging effect. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit on that, on how to leverage a press release.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I would say that there are two different ways that you can leverage the press release most. Okay. So one is going to be to use it in pitches directly to journalists, podcast hosts, whatever else. And then there's actually a tool as well that you can pair it with. But I'll start with just the simple thing. What you're able to do is with Google, shocking, right? You're going to be able to search for, say your industry is fintech, say you're a new fintech product. Just search for fintech podcast or fintech journalists. It's going to show you dozens, if not hundreds of people that you'd be able to contact and actually reach out to. And all you have to do is simply email or DM those individuals the press release and tell them like, hey, I just saw your recent episode. I just saw your latest article on similar software. We're actually, up and coming as well. Check out a recent announcement about X. And no exaggeration, if all you did was that, sent out 100 messages, you'd be able to get 5 to 10 pieces of coverage very, very easily, especially if you're working on something that's pretty exciting, which that's what makes startups so cool is everyone's typically trying to build something big, right? And the better that you can get at concisely communicating what it is that you are building that is big in a short amount of information to those journalists, they're going to want to talk about you, right? And showing that you have a press release to announce it adds a layer of legitimacy. And I'll be honest, if you were doing a podcast pitch, right? Some podcasts don't even necessarily know what a press release is, being that you just paid for it, right? So you could send that out and they would see coverage on Yahoo, Business Insider, or whatever else. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, way more likely to take on you as a startup, you as a founder, than someone else that doesn't have that. So it's sort of this initial layer of credibility.
I love that. So any areas that you find most helpful when leveraging that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this website called Quoted, QWOTED.com. Yes, that's exactly right. And no exaggeration. I know people that own agencies, they'll stay unnamed, that only use this tool to service their clients for PR. And they charge thousands of dollars a month. It costs, I believe, $100, maybe $150 a month. And what it is a platform that basically queues up journalists. It makes it easy for journalists because they always need to be writing. They need new topics. They need new subject matter experts, as we call it in the industry. And they go to that site and they look for new subject matter experts. So they will make a post, for instance, need someone to talk about, for instance, one of the big ones that happened, SVB. That was a big financial thing that kind of blew up here, right? So when that happened, the amount of requests specifically around that, just looking for anyone that wanted to talk about it, was enormous. And these are going to be opportunities on the big ones, Forbes, Bloomberg's, International Business Times, Daily Mail, worldwide major platforms that a journalist is just not wanting to go and find someone in their own network. So they reach out and use these tools to have experts reach out to them. Again, if you spent maybe 20, 30 minutes a day doing this, you would be getting more PR coverage than you would know what to do with, quite frankly. So that's a really powerful way for anyone to get more organic coverage for almost free.
Phenomenal. So now you have this coverage, super cheap price to get you and looking as great as you can, and so that investors can find you, whether you're a fund manager, entrepreneur, or somewhere in between. You have these tools that Michael has provided, but I think I promised 3. So I'm curious, maybe for the third point, how would you say that someone who's raising capital can capitalize on that media attention? Once it's happening, you get the ball rolling. How do they capitalize on that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And a lot of this depends on the products, the industry, exactly what it is, and the platform that's going to best serve them. But any coverage that you get should be shared. Sounds obvious, but you would be so surprised how many people just get featured and then they forget it ever exists. So putting it on your website, having a banner, posting it on your Instagram, posting it on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, for me, is probably the best platform because you have a lot of control, especially when you're raising money. So here's the hack. So if you are raising money of any kind, LinkedIn should be your best friend, full stop. And the reason for that is you can connect with anyone, any high net worth individual, anyone. The only limit is how much time you spend trying to connect with them. And there's a ton of automation tools out there that you could use to do that. So are you familiar with Sales Navigator with LinkedIn?
I'm not.
Cool. So it's a plugin that LinkedIn has. It's directly built into it, and it allows you essentially to search for people with more filters. So rather than me just looking up Ryan Miller and seeing 1,000 of them, I would be able to do Ryan Miller, Making Billions podcast like host, basically. I could do all these different layers of keywords, and it allows you to do very in-depth searches. And what I'm getting at here is what you want to do is add all of the target market, whether that's your customer, whether that's an investor, potential investor, right? And you want them in your network. It's as if you're making followers. So anyone that does not grow their LinkedIn is kind of silly because it's so hard to get followers on almost any other platform. Whereas with LinkedIn, it's just a connection. And you almost force them to see your stuff. Once they connect with you, they're there. And even if you're the one that's trying to shake their hand, they're there. So what you'd want to do is, say you just got picked up in a publication and you're like, great, what am I doing now? You just go to your LinkedIn after already hopefully connecting to several hundred, if not 1,000 plus of those potential investors, of those potential clients, and you'd be able to make a post and say, look, woke up to a feature in Daily Mail, woke up to a feature in Yahoo, woke up to a feature in X, right? And what that does is it's this intrigue. Because what are investors looking for? Again, anything that separates startups from the masses. Because I can't even imagine, Ryan, for you, how many pitches do you get? How many people come to you trying to, get money that you have to kind of filter, right?
A lot. No exaggeration. I average about 200 emails a day.
Wow.
And that comes from my website at pentiumcapitalpartners.com. There's a thing where you can say, I'd like to talk to you. I have this business, and you fill that out. It comes from LinkedIn a lot, Instagram, like all this stuff that you're talking about. When I'm at events speaking on stage, and I just got back from speaking on stage with Ed Milet and Jim Rogers and all these other people. You go on a stage in front of 3,500 fund managers, they're all going to hit you up for money. And hey, respect to them, man. That's a good game. But the point is that you do get hit up a lot. And those filters that I think you're talking about here, whether it's actual filters like, hey man, I actually don't give out my personal phone number, or digital filters like on LinkedIn and Sales Navigator, I think the point is that you need a way to get to the signal and push away the noise so that you're more effective in what you're trying to do. And in this case, that's raise capital.
Exactly. And if you think about it too, it's like, what is an investor looking for? Points of differentiation. At an early stage, all that matters to get the initial conversation. Obviously, it won't take you the entire way. You can't build something terrible. We always say, if you put glitter on a rock, it doesn't make it a diamond. Mm-hmm. But, what we can do is get that initial intrigue. If you get that initial intrigue, you get so much further than the masses. And that's what people are missing is you need to get in the door, and then you can get the feedback to fix the actual business. But a lot of people just don't get in the door frequently enough or to the right people. So it just doesn't work out.
So, you asked me when we first met way back that you said, try Googling yourself. And I laughed and I said, well, there's this darn NHL former goalie that has the same name as me, so I don't really show up anywhere. And you mentioned there's some tools that are somewhat helpful, and you said just Googling yourself is a good start to be like, how do you show up? Because if you know how you show up and you don't like it, guess what? All your potential investors that you're working hard to get their attention, they're seeing the same thing. So either you're not there, nobody can find you, or it's pictures from you from high school chugging a 40 or whatever it might be. I mean, I'm being kind of facetious, but you just really want to make sure that you don't neglect this part, I think is what Michael and I are saying, don't neglect the fact that maybe you have a pitch deck that talks about your thesis and your technology, and you can geek out about all the numbers and how everybody's going to be a billionaire in 5 years. But don't forget that part of raising capital is also people are confident in you. They like what they see, what they hear, and what they feel when you're in the room. And also when you're not in the room and they're Googling you. So either way, this is important. Besides Googling yourself and just kind of checking in, is there any other tools other than Google that you found helpful in this area to just help people to figure out how do they look, how are they showing up?
Yeah, absolutely. So one tool that we use just to see general search traffic, it's called SpyFu. So SPYFU.com. What it basically allows you to do is type in any keyword. So you can type in your company, your full name, whatever it may be, like your first name, last name, company name. You can see search volume. You can see what else people are looking for. And you're going to be able to see kind of just what you look like online in general. So it gives you an analysis too of if they're searching for anything else. So it could even show you competitors. If there's any other similar startups, it'll even show you that because they basically scrape your site and match you with other keywords. So it's a pretty in-depth product. I think it's like $9 a month. So bargain. And yeah, so that's pretty great. But I honestly, man, I think Googling yourself is the most simple thing. Best place to start. It's if there's anything bad, bury it. I'm not even saying bad, as in drinking alcohol, like you said, old college parties, whatever it may be, anything that's not what you want as the first impression to an investor, that makes PR even infinitely more important because it's going to be able to get on top of that stack and kind of bury that, push it a little bit deeper. And if you can just delete that stuff, of course, that's probably the easiest thing to do.
Awesome, man. Well, wow, those are phenomenal tips. You can see why Michael has raised a ton of money because he's got a ton of wisdom. He's a real deal and understands how to do that. Not only have you raised capital, but you're willing to share the secret sauce on all that. So thank you for sharing that. But before we wrap things up, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience? Anything at all?
Yeah, definitely. So we have a free community that we're launching. There's about a wait list. There's a wait list right now for 300, 400 people. And it should be launching in August. So this is pretty good timing. It's at thestartupshortcut.com. And what it is a free community where we're just going to give as much value humanly possible to help people raise money. Because, we do believe that if we enable entrepreneurs to get capital in their pockets, that creates a much more exciting future. Like, I personally just think that if we can get entrepreneurs capital, the world becomes a lot better, which is kind of the underlying mission of what we do here at Establish. We obviously can't help everyone, just like yourself. It's impossible. So by giving this free resource, it's a really great way for us to get founders to connect and to provide a ridiculous amount of value at literally no cost. What you can also do is email me at intro@establishpr.com. That's my company. And if you just mention Making Billions with Ryan Miller, we'll curate a list of investors for you, like 25 investors a show. So that way we can just show you who to reach out to. If you're completely clueless right now, no worries. We'll give you 25 people. Tell you even a message on how to reach out to them just based on what we've seen work really well.
Man, phenomenal. That is awesome. That's very generous of you. So Making Billions exclusive, that's Michael right there for you. So just to synthesize everything, learn how to do a press release. The second thing that Michael taught us was learn how to leverage those press releases, and finally, how to capitalize on that media attention. You do these things and you too will be well on your way in your pursuit of making billions.